This month's episode is brought to you by DreamHost.
In this month's episode of the AnimeCons.com podcast, Elizabeth and Shiva share tips for making a good masquerade skit, Patrick complains about some bad convention websites, Sketch smacks around some people in the Q&A, and in the news, the Final Fantasy composer makes his first convention appearance. I'm Doug and this is the AnimeCons.com podcast for March 2010.
There's a lot of news this month, so let's get to it. Leading off our news stories is this month is the first appearance of the Final Fantasy composer. Oh, Jesus!
No, I get to announce this.
Ow!
Leading off our news stories this month is the first appearance by Final Fantasy composer Nobuo Uematsu at a North American anime convention. Anime Boston, thank God, has announced Mr. Uematsu as a guest of honor, along with guest musician Mim and voice actors Carly Mosier, Josh Greel, Clarion Harp, Christopher Smith, J. Michael Tatum, and artists Bob and Emily DeJesus.
Also in the Northeast, New Jersey's Castle Point Anime Convention has added voice actor Michael Perica to their guest list. RIT Anime Club has added Eric Val, Geek Comedy Tour, and Arm Cannon to the guest roster for the Tora-Con 2010. For news out of the South, Animazement has announced guests Richard Ian Cox, Chihoi Shaito, Chika Sakamoto, Spike Spencer, and band You Choose Sentai Noise. San Japan and San Antonio has announced guest appearances by the Proto Men, Tina Anderson, the cosplay group We Heart Card Games Productions. Florida Supercon has announced new guests including Troy Baker, Brittany Karaboski, Dina Schneider, MC Frontalot, and Outlander Moore. Voice actors Vic Mignogna, Mel Flanagan, the Yoshida brothers will be guests at Otakon 2010. The Yoshida brothers will perform on Friday, July 30th, as well as signing autographs and participating on a panel. MomoCon has announced guests the Manpower, GameStar, Kotaku.com's Mike Ferry, and Jenny Breenman and Gina Biggs. Matsuri in Houston, Texas has announced band Back On will perform at the con this April. Hamacon has announced guests Aletha Burns and Coraline Volterel. The cosplayers will also be serving as cosplay contest judges. Over in the Midwest, Shinboku Con has announced voice actors Tiffany Grant and singer Gavin Guska as guests of their convention. QC Anime-zing has announced guests Carrie Savage and a performance by the Manpower at their convention. Shuto Con, scheduled for March 2011, has announced a performance of the Wasabi Animusical 4, A New Hope. Kawa Kon has announced its final round of guests, including voice actor Robert Axelrod. Out west, Kawaii Kon has announced their final guests of honor, voice actors Hideo Ishikawa and Masukatsu Morita, as well as Alt-Air. Tsuyoshi Nonaka, Yasuhiro Imagawa, and Yotaka Minowa will be guests at Sakura-Con 2010. FanimeCon has announced the first guest of honor for 2010, Japanese band LMC. Phoenix Comic-Con has announced anime cover band Kitsuna Robot will be performing at their convention this May. Ani-Ida-Con has announced their first convention will be held in March 2011 in Boise, Idaho. Guests include Rax Attack, Michael Coleman, Tiffany Grant, and Vic Mignogna. While the rest of Canada is distracted by the Winter Olympic Games, Ai-Kon in Winnipeg, Manitoba, has announced the first guest, Monica Rial and Greg Ayres. In other news, Robotech.com has announced its first round of venues for the 2010 convention tour. This year's tour will celebrate Robotech's 25th anniversary and share the latest information on new developments in the Robotech universe. For more information on these announcements from cons all over the world, please visit AnimeCons.com.
This month we're going to talk about preparing your masquerade skit. Elizabeth and I have done a lot of masquerades and a lot of different kinds of performances, so we want to give some advice. We can't promise that we'd help you make an award-winning skit, but hopefully not mess it up and have an enjoyable performance. The first thing we want to talk about is getting your idea.
Right. The idea can come from either you have an idea for what you want to do on stage, or you want to do these specific costumes and okay, and we need an idea. Or you come up with the idea and okay, now we need costumes. We've had different examples of both come up where we're like, hey, I'm doing this costume for this con, what should we do? Or, oh my god, I love this song, what can we do with it? So it's definitely important to have a concept, because if you're on stage without a concept, no one's going to know what you're doing and the audience is going to be really, really bored.
There are some people that tend to, they think they want to do the masquerade, and so when sign-ups start, they'll sign up for a spot, but they haven't come up with their idea yet. You don't want to do that at all. You want to have your idea before you actually sign up, because one, you might not come up with anything, or two, you're taking a spot away from someone who might have had a great idea and didn't get a chance to participate.
And also for signing up, you want to read the rules very thoroughly. Rules are different from convention to convention. Like the sci-fi conventions have their own rules versus anime conventions versus whatever else kind of convention. So I think every convention I've been to has some kind of variant that's different. Right. So you want to read them. You don't want to bother the masquerade director by asking questions where it's clearly pointed out in the rules. So definitely read that first.
In fact, some conventions where the masquerade's very competitive for getting a spot, they screen the skits, they might disqualify you for asking stupid questions. So you don't want to do that. You do want to make sure the kinds of costumes you're going to use are appropriate, the type of activity you're going to do is appropriate to that convention, and your time or member limit for the group is within their operating rules. Speaking
of time, you don't have to use the whole time given to you.
Please
don't. It's not
actually
a requirement. If God forbid the convention is 5 minutes be the limit, you don't have to do 5 minutes. If there's a song you want to do, you can always cut down the song, like use a verse, a chorus, the bridge, and the end, instead of like 8 million verses and 8 million choruses. There's an awesome program called Audacity. It's free, and you can use it to edit songs. You can use it to record your video and put it together with music and other videos. So for example, my skit for PortCon, the person I was doing with, she was in Connecticut, I live in Massachusetts, and I sent her my audio of my lines and she spliced them together in Audacity, and it was all set to go when we got to the convention.
That kind of also leads into recording your dialogue ahead of time if you have dialogue and you're not just using a song. A lot of people at larger conventions are required to do it, but smaller conventions it's not always required by the event that you do it, but it's always recommended, even if it's in a small room. First of all, because it sounds better, and if you live far away from other people, you're able to prepare it ahead of time. You don't have to worry about forgetting your lines because you're just lip syncing them, and it actually really helps with the time limit because you're not dragging it out. Someone's dropping a line; it's the same length every time you do it.
But if you think you have something that's going to get a good reaction out of the crowd, make sure to leave a little break in there so that they don't miss your next awesome line.
Because they're laughing so loud because you're amazing.
And if you want to be amazing, you have to practice.
A lot of practice.
A lot, especially if you're dancing. Practice.
Yes. I'd say that before you even start, you want to first pick people that are going to be dedicated to it, and you want to create some kind of schedule for getting together and going over what you're going to do. I mean, obviously something more involved like a dance skit is going to take more time than something where you're just coming up with blocking for dialogue, or if you're doing it by yourself and you can come up with your own thing on your own time. But you want to give yourself more time than you think you're going to need, because something always comes up and you don't want to be crunched at the last minute.
Yeah, and the convention should give you the stage dimension so you know what kind of area you're working with, so you don't fall off the stage like some people.
Which can also disqualify you if you move yourself from the stage. We always actually tape our stage. We get it ahead of time if we're doing something major, and we tape the dimensions on the ground ahead of time, and that way we know exactly what we're going to do.
So what kind of things should you maybe avoid in your skit?
Well,
would you say?
I mean, you want to stick to what you're good at, okay? I mean, it isn't a talent show, but at the same time, if you know that you play an instrument, or you know that you sing, or you know that you dance, you know, something that you have experience in, you want to showcase that. I mean, you're showcasing your costume skills, you're showcasing your performance skills. You might as well do something that you're familiar with. But you want to avoid things like, if you're doing a comedy skit, in-jokes.
Yep.
Either with your friends or even within the anime or the video game, because not everybody's seen it. Even if it's something like Naruto or Death Note, I haven't seen it.
No.
I won't lie.
I mean, there's some concepts like, hey, you're writing a Death Note, someone dies, everyone knows that.
Right.
But, you know, really specific things no one's going to know, and you want a wide appeal. Things like memes and unoriginal dances like the Hari Hari Yukai, unless you can think of something original and new to do with it, just stay away.
In general, reenactments, stay away from. Do something creative, do something original, and tell a story. Any other thoughts?
That's all I got. Work hard.
Work
Think
hard.
of something new.
Have fun, and
have fun.
be creative, and no male, female, male kissing. Just stop. No more kissing. We've seen it. Go make out with your boyfriend instead, or whatever.
Hi, I'm Patrick Delahanty, the webmaster for AnimeCons.com, and as part of what I do running the website, I visit every convention website out there, and so I've seen them all, and I gather information that we repost on AnimeCons.com, such as the date and location. And so this month I wanted to share what I feel is some of the essentials that should be on every convention's website, and a lot of them seem to forget. So this is just a reminder to all the conventions out there to make sure that have this information on the website. First of all, the convention name. It may seem obvious, but there's some conventions that really haven't put that out there. And if you pick a name, pick a standard way of spelling it. If you don't want to do Yada-Con one word, one place, Yada-Con two words someplace else, and then have con with a lowercase c and uppercase c, just pick a standard. It looks nice. Also, when you have a location, post it on the site. Let people know exactly what hotel you're going to be at. And if you're using some other non-hotel venue, tell them where it is, give them directions. Put all the information on their site, because when the time comes for the convention, they'll want to know how to get there. So directions are good help. Even put a link to Google Maps. Also, a lot of conventions, well, not a lot, just a few conventions actually, forget to put what dates they're happening. They'll have just, oh, summer. Yeah, you should really have the date front and center on the top of every page. I mean, make it so they can't miss what date it is. There's a bunch of conventions that hide it within some sub-page. No, the date and location should be on every page. Now, most cons are 3-day, and it's generally assumed your convention will be 3-day unless you specify otherwise. And if you have a 1-day convention, you should probably say what hours it will operate. If it's 3-day, people generally assume that it starts sometime Friday afternoon and ends sometime Sunday afternoon. Also, you want to post the registration rates. As soon as you know them, post them. You'll want to post not only the current rate, but the future rate as well. That will actually help you get registrations. If you get, say, $35 rate now, tell people it will be $40 or $45 in the future, and that'll get them to register faster. If you just say, oh, it's $35, and then at some point you raise it, oh, now it's $40, they're not going to have any advance notice. So let them know what the full rate schedule is. Let them know what the at-door rates are. So if they have to pay more at the door to get in, they'll know exactly what it is. And also be sure to mention what payment methods you accept. If you're going to take cash only at the door, if you'll take checks, what you accept through the mail, if people can use Visa or PayPal.
And if you have any fees for using any sort of payment method, be sure to state that up front. Also, list the events you'll have at your convention. I see a lot of conventions out there that just list that they're a convention, they're happening, and they might list 1 or 2 events. List everything. If you've got a video room, say you have a video room. If you're going to have cosplay contests, AMV contests, put the rules up for those. It'll save you a lot of time in the long run where people aren't asking you questions. And just simple stuff, like if you're having panels, list, you don't even have to list what panels you're having, but just say you're going to have panels. You'll get more people interested in your convention if you just list what events you're planning on doing. And if you have to wait before some are confirmed, that's fine, but give people a sense of what they can expect at your convention. And also be sure to list contact information. A lot of the questions we get at AnimeCons.com are because the convention does not list contact information on their site. So they come to us and we can't help them because we don't know who to refer them to because there's no contact info on the con site. So list some contact info. It's helpful if you list it for multiple departments. So if somebody has a question about one thing, they can ask that person directly. If they have a question about something else, they can go to that person. And also, please do not rely solely on social media sites such as Facebook, LiveJournal, or Twitter. Have a real website with the information there, and take advantage of Facebook and Twitter and that for additional information and reaching the people, but refer them back to your site where they can get more information. And so I hope that those tips help you out with planning your convention's website.
Our sponsor this month is DreamHost. After hearing all the sponsorships for the past year or so, I finally signed up with DreamHost. I put my cosplay website on there, and soon I'll be moving over another website that I run, and who knows, maybe I'll be like Patrick D and have 8 million websites with DreamHost. Because you have unlimited bandwidth, unlimited disk space, you get a domain registration when you sign up, you get email addresses, one-click installs for things like WordPress, which I definitely use for a couple of my websites. So it's definitely great to check out. If you use the code MANGA1 when you sign up, you get $10 off your order. So, you know, go check it out at dreamhost.com. Restrictions may apply. That's the word I'm looking for. Restrictions may apply. See site for details at dreamhost.com.
This month's question is typical of many we get at animecons.com. Hi. There's always a hi. I want to make a request. I would like MegaCon, usually in Florida, to be at Waco, Texas, please. It would be my biggest dream. I would like it to be at the Texas Fair in October. Please? Thank you. Also, as I could make another request, can Vic Mignogna also be there? Thank you. Those are my requests. We don't run anime conventions. This is AnimeCons.com. We report about AnimeCons. We have no desire to run every single convention in the United States or in the world, nor do we have the budget for that. MegaCon is set in Florida. It's where they have it. It's where they want it. I'm sorry we can't have any prowess in moving it. But if you go to our site, you can find cons near you by Waco. You can go north to Dallas or south to Austin. Again, we have no say whatsoever in how a con is run and where it's run. So please, stop asking us this question. If you have any convention-related questions for the AnimeCons.com podcast crew, you can send them to us at podcast@animecons.com.
We're still holding our contest to see who can correctly identify the most conventions featured on the wall. 1 point for every correct convention and year, -1 point for every incorrect guess. Win a DVD autographed by voice actor Hamacon. Send your entries to contest@animecons.com. The contest ends Sunday, March 21st. You can follow AnimeCons.com's news on Twitter at twitter.com/AnimeCons. Remember to become a fan on Facebook at facebook.com/AnimeConsPodcast. Join us talking about AnimeCons on our forums at forums.animecons.com. Finally, Brian Brushwood broadcast NSFW from our studio a couple weeks ago, and we'd like to say hello to all our new viewers who discovered us from there. Hi.
We do have to thank the only reason this episode is even possible outside of the cooperation of everyone at the Twit Cottage, including Colleen, our intrepid engineer, doing a fantastic job switching remotely. But we actually have 2 Skype cameras set up at we're going to call it our East Coast bunker, deep in the basement of Patrick Delahanty, longtime fan of the show, where he runs his own podcast, AnimeCons at animecons.com. Fantastic show. All of you, if you're into anime cons or con games at anime. I don't know what you're doing.
Is that it? Is it like career criminals who are also fans of Dragon Ball Z?
Yeah, exactly. But literally, we have our first ever studio audience, and I'm proud to announce that we have 5 people watching NSFW live. Make some noise. Go. So that's a hell of a start. I don't know. I'm proud of our first studio audience gig. I think it's, and of course the inimitable chat room as well. We got the chat room as well.
Nice rock this joint.
Okay. And in the news, Final Fantasy composer. Oh, the Final Fantasy. Sorry.
Final Fantasy composer. Ah!
I get to know. The first appearance by Final Fantasy composer. I don't have a microphone.
Yeah, can hear you.
Along with guest musician Mim. I'm sorry. I'm only gonna let us say the musician. I get to push sketch again.
There's a lot of news this month. Thanks for making a noise. Kawaii Kon has announced their final guest of honor, voice actors Hideo Ishikawa and Masakazu Morita. Voice actors Hideo Ishikawa and Masakazu Morita. Hideo Ishikawa and Masakazu Morita. Hideo Ishikawa and Masakazu Morita. I'm sorry, I can't read stupid.